We've been talking for a little bit, guys, but I'm joined with Anthony Sparks, who is a sports scientist by trade. We've met last week, but we've been speaking on and off through Instagram for a couple of years, probably. Just haven't managed to meet through various reasons, but now we've met, and here we are, and we're just going to have a chat about Anthony, or Sparky, as he likes to be called, what he does, what he enjoys doing, his opinion on some topics, and yeah, just sort of coaching and things that he knows more about than I do, so he can teach us all. So yeah, how are you doing, Anthony? You good? I know we've already done this, but we'll do it again. Are you good?
Yeah, no, I'm all good, thank you, pal. Yeah,
Good,
I'm
good.
very happy to be here. You
Thank
know, it's always nice to have the opportunity to share value,
you.
and I hope whoever's watching, be it straight after the recording or further down the line, hopefully I can bring some value to someone somewhere.
Absolutely.
That would be nice. That would be a win-win for me
Yeah, no, you will do, but you will do,
for
man.
sure.
Um, so tell the people, let's do the cliche sort of, what is your, what should we know about you before we start this? Give us your context in your best way.
Okay, so yeah, obviously as Ollie you know, very kindly introduced me. My name's Anthony. I'm 26 years old. I'm from Surrey, and my background is obviously in sports science. I've been around football, literally since I was knee high to a grasshopper. Since I was tiny, and yeah, I've just been, I suppose, as we all are, on this journey, and certain things come up along the way. Certain events happen, you meet certain people, and yeah, it's part of the wonderful journey that is life. And I think that's how we should view life. We should view life as a certainly as a journey, rather than a certain point in time, or whatever. So I suppose backtracking a few years, went to university, studied sports science, as well as obviously pursuing my football at the time, before injuries. I suppose it's so cliche, but you know, unfortunately, injuries prevented me from kind of progressing with my football in a playing capacity. Um, but as I say, you know, these things happen along the way, and it opens more doors for you. And I'm certainly very grateful for everything that I've experienced along the journey. I think you have to be, because that's where the greatest learning is, in your experiences, and being able to learn from that moving forward. So yeah, that's I suppose that's kind of a good starting point. So I'm a football coach, but obviously, as I say, I do sports science work with youth players as well. So my work day to day is within youth football development. It's
Mhm.
my real driver, if you like. But I suppose people should have these drivers in their lives, in terms of what makes them tick. And youth development for me is a big one. It's a bit I just get such passion from it. I love the sense of contribution.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And if you love football as well, and you love, it's a match made in heaven, isn't it? Because you get to do your two favorite things in one, so it's like perfect. You've got the love of football
Of
and teaching
course.
football, and that, like, teaching is a great way of improving your ability to your own ability to do something, isn't it? So you're also doing that as
Oh
well,
yeah.
and you get to impart wisdom, and you're not just training these boys for
Mm,
football, but you're also coaching them for life as well.
mm.
Maybe without even realizing there's a massive, because life and sport are very much linked in loads of ways, which is why I think we love it so much.
I'll tell you what, we've had a few technical glitches so far, haven't we, eh? But hey, you've got to roll with it. Everything's no problem. I
Oh
think
well, it doesn't
that's
matter.
But
go with it. My recording from my laptop
but
is fine anyway. If you can hear
yeah,
me
no,
well, then
as I say, I can hear you well, and I think just going to digress on that point I made just there in terms of having the attitude of everything's no problem. I think is a very very good way to approach life. I think it's such a good attitude and
yeah,
mentality. If you're literally just like, no matter what comes your way, if you are like, no problem, if that is your attitude, how can we solve that? You know, just being solution minded, you know, rather than fixating on the problem and spending most of your time and your energy on that. Just focus on, okay, this situation's happening or whatever it is, you know, it's no problem. What can we do about it? You know, I think it's a great
yeah.
attitude to have.
You are you are a very positive person, aren't you? I can tell.
But not
Yeah,
to the point where but I don't think it's to the point where I don't think to the point where it is like annoying or whatever, because you got like I've heard it from Jim Rohn. You know, Jim Rohn has taught me so much. He's a for those who don't know, he's a personal development philosopher. He's probably one of the founding origins of personal development, and he always says, um, you know, you can't ignore the negative. You've just got to learn to handle it. And I think again, it's just flipping it into a positive. You know, just learning to handle negatives is, yeah, something that Jim Rohn has taught me for sure. So yeah, shout out to Jim.
shout out to Jim. Yeah. No, that was one of the questions I was going to ask. I don't know why I'm talking into the microphone. It doesn't work. I was going to ask um, this can go away now. What are your who are your who are your inspirations? And Jim Rohn is obviously one of them.
Oh
And
yeah.
is he connected to The Secret? Is he sort of Bob
Oh
Proctor,
yeah.
that sort of esque person, or
Yeah, yeah,
is he someone
yeah, yeah,
different? He
definitely,
is.
definitely. Um, for those that
What
for those
do
that
you do?
know the book Think and Grow Rich, so obviously that was written by
Yeah,
Napoleon Hill,
Napoleon Hill.
who mentored a guy called Earl Shoaff, who Earl Shoaff mentored Jim Rohn. So it's kind of like a chain of people, a chain of events that, you know, through time
Yeah,
have, you know, kind of honed these personal development principles, if you like, and they are timeless. You know, they're absolutely timeless. Like the information that was written
mm,
in Think and Grow Rich, the book by Napoleon Hill, was in the 1920s, I think. It's timeless, priceless
wow.
information.
Yeah,
It's just, you know, what what bits of that are you gonna, you know, gain from it and trying to apply to your life, I think is, you know, what yeah, what can you do with that information? You know, how can you apply it to your life? You don't have to like use it all, you don't have to absorb it all. It just can be certain bits that you wanna try and implement, you know?
that, that call to use bits that because it's like a jigsaw, building your own a personal development journey. I think is like a bit of a
Mm.
jigsaw in the sense that you have to take well, actually, not a jigsaw, I
No,
suppose,
I
but
like that analogy.
it's like a
I
kind
like
of
that.
like a jigsaw, and you have to take pieces from multiple different people and multiple different ideas and ways of thinking and concepts and his sort of history and I would go things like mythology and all these things. There's so much wisdom buried in it, and you just have to sort of, if you're interested in self development, you have to like expose yourself to as much of it
Mm.
as possible and focus on what calls out to you, and then build your own jigsaw and build your own puzzle and stumble through life as we all do on a daily basis, really. And and then people like you come along and you're making a difference to people, young people, and through your social media and stuff, putting great quotes and things out there. And that's what we have to do. We have to take the wisdom from the past forward and create new wisdom with the new environment that
Mm.
we all live in, and that's that's quite a hard thing to do. It's also
Mm.
really important. Right, give me. I'm just gonna look at this squiggle here we've got.
Squiggle. What a word.
What does? I'm only taking the piss because my handwriting's just as bad. So, in fact, someone said to me literally 2 days ago, "What the
Oh
fuck
dear.
is this, Ollie?" And I'm like,
It's all good. I'm not taking it personally. Don't worry.
"So, what does coaching mean to you? From a how? What is your
Mm.
coaching style? We've talked about it, but what is your coaching
Great,
style when you're working with these
great
young and fresh
question.
kids?"
Fantastic question. Coaching means to me, I suppose, it's it's stretching that comfort zone. You hear a lot of people saying, you got to get outside of your comfort zone. I don't necessarily see that as a good way to think about it. But that's just my personal opinion.
Hmm.
I like to think of it as stretching it, almost like working it like a muscle sort of thing, or stretching it like an elastic band.
Yeah.
And the reason I say that is just purely because I think it's a more positive way to look at it. If you're focused on getting outside of your comfort zone, I feel like it just brings a lot of negative connotations with it and a lot of added pressure, which isn't
Mm.
necessary. Isn't necessary. So I just like to think of it as stretching it. And obviously, with coaching, comes a lot of things around personal development, growth, progress, leadership, all these things that kind of come together. So but I think the big thing for me with coaching again is that sense of contribution. Is being able to take a player from where they are and kind of help them on that journey to wherever they want to go. I think that's the biggest thing, and obviously seeing that journey and you know being with them all the way is brilliant. It's a terrific feeling. Uh, and I was going to say something else, but it's left me, and it will probably come back to me. So I think, as a starting point, I think
Yeah.
that's kind of what coaching means to me as a starting point.
Yeah. What's your sort of specifically? What are your coaching doctrines of how you
in
coach?
in terms of
What's
my
your style?
style.
Do you believe in pressure? Pressure makes diamonds, or do you believe? Are you more sort of arm around Maurizio
This is a
Pochettino-esque teddy bear style, or are you a bit more Jose Mourinho and shout at you until you
this is
concede and
this is
do what I
another
want?
great point. So I see my coaching style as very calm, very collected, and very thoughtful. You'll never see me shout and scream at my players ever. I don't believe you can fight fire with fire. We spoke earlier about emotions.
Mhm.
Now, if a player
Yeah.
has, heightened emotions, whatever that may be, I don't see any point in trying to fight that emotion with your own heightened emotions. Fighting fire with fire. I see little point in it. And I've just remembered what I was going to talk about in terms of what coaching means to me. Trust and relationships are two foundational pillars, if you like, in terms of how I go about coaching youth players. Because for me, if the players don't trust you, if there's no relationship, if you don't take the time to build a working relationship with them, especially as they're minors, you haven't got a chance. You literally haven't got a chance.
Yeah.
That's just my personal opinion. Some other coaches may see that differently. I believe in trying to build trust and a good, healthy working relationship.
Let's talk about sports science. What is sports science for anyone out there that doesn't know it very well? And I'm one of those people. So, what does it entail? What does it involve?
Sports science, again, it's a good question. Sports science for me is just how can we maximize performance? How can we get the best out of whoever you're working with to achieve, you know, maximal sporting performance, if you like. So what things can we do around a person's sport in terms of their recovery, their nutrition, their strength and conditioning, their lifestyle, all these different things that are around it. What can we do? What sort of things can we implement that is going to help keep that progression trend going, if you like? So again, it does link back to personal development. It's interesting how pretty much
Yeah.
most aspects of what I do, it all relates to personal development in some way. It's interesting to kind of.
Well, yeah, it's cool you say that because there's a quote, or I saw some guy who said, I didn't see him, but I watched a video and he said, the only thing you'll ever do in life is work on yourself. And that in a way that's quite a selfish sort of outlook to have, but I think what he means is that every endeavor you ever take on, you're perfecting and you're changing yourself at the same time as, or damaging yourself, I suppose, depending on what it is, as well as other people, but it's impacting you just as much as it's impacting other things. I don't know. It was a weird one. It was one of those sort of outlandish comments where you look and go, well, that's a bit of a weird thing to say. But I think it is an interesting idea because ultimately all we are is ourselves. And do you get it? It doesn't mean it. I don't think he means it in a selfish way. He just means it as a point of everything relates back to us. And that's why the individual is so important. I was talking to someone whenever, and we were saying how group being part of a team is obviously very important and it's a necessary part of being human, and we're all part of teams and groups and things, but groups are just made up of individuals. So the individual is the key, and personal development is very much related to individuals, and then you scale it up and things like that. um What's I saw a photo that yeah, I saw a photo on Instagram where you in the fitness. What's it called again? Talk about the group that you set up or that you're part
So
of.
I'm guessing you're referring to the Fit Men focus group. I'm guessing
Fitment,
that's what
yes,
you're referring to.
yeah,
And I suppose this is how I stumbled into personal development. I got introduced to the concept by a very good friend of mine called Billy Davis. So big shout out to Billy. I'm very grateful to him for just introducing me to a different way. A different way, a different perspective on life, and yeah, so I'm very grateful to him. I suppose the purpose of it is to give guys a place where they can come and just be accepted for who they are, no matter where they are in their life, no matter what their background is. And we just, it's a place where guys can just come and, tap into other people's experiences and, learn from different content that we kind of give in terms of, health and fitness, personal development, it's all around that. It's all around bettering each other, you know, and I suppose that's kind of the key purpose is to help blokes become the best they can possibly be, whatever that means to them. And we have a group chat via the Telegram channel. We have nearly 400 guys in there now, so it's we're definitely making a difference. We're definitely creating an impact, and it's just an amazing thing to be a part of. And we have that group chat where we share value, content, tips, around different aspects of life, and we also do a lot of social events as well. So we got a lot coming up in terms of different events we've got going on. And obviously at the weekend I was down in Worthing for our sea and sauna session, which was just one of the best experiences ever. I've never I've never felt so good after something like that. It was just an amazing experience and a great group to be a part of. It was a very small group of us. There was two groups of six, so it's different sessions back to back. But yeah, that was fantastic. That was a great experience.
That's really good. I saw you all there with your tops off, looking all muscular and ripped. It was good. Just getting out of the cold. Lightning.
Yeah, I mean I mean, obviously the health benefits of hot and cold therapy are very well documented now, and
they're growing, aren't they?
It's a really good thing to do, and obviously I suppose they're mobile. I mean, the sauna that this guy had, it was basically a converted horse box, essentially, which he turned into a sauna cabin, and it was on the beach. And then obviously we spent 5 minutes in the sea, then 15 minutes in the sauna, then back into the sea for 5 minutes, back into the sauna for 15 minutes, and then finishing with 10 minutes in the sea. That was the procedure, if you like. that was the session, and it was fantastic. We're not saying that girls can't attend these, but our focus is around guys. It's our focus because it's who we are. It's who we are, and it's who we're. It's how, we can relate to each other so much more. We were actually talking at the weekend about how differently guys and girls think, and I really do think there is a real gulf in terms of our, not just our physiological makeup, but just the way we think. I think there is a difference, and it obviously stems back to when we were chimps. I mean, the book, is it the Chimp Paradox? Yeah. Is that right? Is that
Chimp Paradox? Yeah, by Steve Peters.
So that I need to read it. It was brought up in the conversation.
Book, yeah.
It was brought up in the conversation on Saturday. If we hadn't read it, we needed to read it, and so that's going to be my book of choice for July. I'm gonna read the Chimp Paradox.
Going back to what you said about like guys and girls thinking differently, I think there's definitely some truth to that. There's a lot of similarities, but there are a couple of differences. Like, one of the things that I find really interesting is, you've got fight or flight. Everyone talks about fight or flight. Bangs on about fight or flight. The fight or flight response, the parasympathetic nervous system and sympathetic nervous system. But there's another type of there's another stress response which is called tend and befriend, and that's a technique. That's a more sort of female stress response. And what it means is, tend and befriend means tend to children, to infants, and then befriend other women and people around you. And that's how a lot of the time that's how women deal with their stress, or that's how science documents them dealing with their stress. And I think I've got loads of anecdotal evidence about that, and I think that makes sense. I mean, men tend and befriend as well, but men are more fight or flight, and I think that leads to a lot of the stereotyping and a lot of the lack of men talking about it, because
mm,
it isn't within their makeup almost to talk about it. It's within their makeup
mm,
to run away from it or to deal with it head on. Whereas women, it's in
mm,
their makeup to speak to other people, literally tend and befriend. It's why female use their social groups as support so much. It's why girls comment on each other's Instagram photos going gorgeous, stunning, OMG,
mm.
all that crap.
I wouldn't necessarily say it's crap, but as you rightly say, it's how they think, right? You know, you know. Mm, mm, mm,
Vasopressin, which is a hormone that's released when you overcome a problem, when you find a solution to a problem. So that makes sense why men in military and working in armed forces and doing things like you do with the Fit Men group, it's such a bonding thing because they're overcoming a problem and finding a solution together. So yeah, differences between men and women, but
mm,
also, fair enough, a lot of similarities. So you've got to
mm.
consider both, in my opinion. Talk to me about dating.
I know what I'm looking for, which is it's a good starting point. I think for me, the big thing that I look for in a partner, I suppose, or someone who I see as being a potential partner, the big thing is
Mhm.
having someone to grow alongside. I think that's a big thing for me
Yeah,
because obviously I'm someone who doesn't want to stay as I am. I want to grow, I want to better
of
myself, I
course.
want to develop, I want to see who I can become. I need to be with somebody who matches that energy. And I couldn't, you know, I couldn't be with someone who is just quite comfortable with who they are, and you know,
Yeah.
I couldn't do it because it would
No,
it would just yeah, it just we just wouldn't get on, I don't think. So I think that's
no, you wouldn't.
that's the key thing that I look for, and the way I see an intimate relationship is two independent people who come together to obviously better each other and see who they can become. Two independent
Mm.
people on different journeys, and all they do is just encourage one another, better each other, grow together. All these it's what I look for. It's the big thing I look for.
That is one of the main doctrines of why I set up this podcast, really, because I want to encourage people who I believe are doing good, and I want them to realize that their efforts don't go unnoticed, which is why anyone that's on the podcast is because I believe that they're doing a lot of good. And even if it does go unnoticed, it doesn't go unnoticed by me. And the universe, God is always watching, and they need to know that, even in times of darkness, when you think, what's the point? There's no hope. If it ever is like that, then you've got to know that no, there is, because what people are trying to pursue is greater than a lot of what people pursue nowadays. Because I think we're in a time of hedonism and selfishness and sort of buying and monetization, and it's not always wrong. It's leading to a lot of growth and a lot of wealth being sort of implemented into society, but the people that are trying to make the world a better place need to realize what they're doing, and that's really good. And hence why you're here.
Just going back briefly to relationships and that side of things. So my dad and I have a very, very close relationship, and we talk about a lot of things. And I actually posed the question to him recently in terms of relationships and what he believes makes a good relationship, because I see him as a good person to go for that advice, because he's been with my mum for 30 plus years, before marriage. So I think they're a good example of how a relationship should work, right? I see that. So I definitely I definitely look up to that for sure, and what they've been able to build together. And I did pose the question to my dad. I said, what do you believe makes a relationship long lasting? What gives it longevity, and what makes it tick? And he said the two key things are communication and compromise. He said those are the two things that have helped your mum and I the most. Communication, compromise.
Yeah. That's brilliant. That is
so.
And I think I don't think I feel like there's a lot less compromise and probably communication but I almost particularly compromise. I think there's a lot less compromise in modern dating than there used to be. And I think there's a lot of inflated sort of sense of worths from many people and both sort of parties that come into relationships, and expectations and things. And I think that maybe that stems from how objectively rich and sort of fortunate we are in the modern era, with all the things we've got at our disposal. And the way we treat things is slowly seeping into the way we treat people. And I think they're different entities, and we dehumanize people a lot. I think social media and online dating particularly dehumanizes people massively in both ways, from a point of view of, oh, they're attractive, to a point of view, oh, they're not attractive. And that's all you see. But dating apps, I'll do a whole podcast on dating apps, because they won't do that. But they do work for some people, so fair play.
It's each to their own, but you're right. And I saw something recently, can't remember who coined it, but it was, in a world where we've never been so connected, or more connected than ever through these clever little devices, we've also never felt so alone. And it's so true. It's so true. And it goes back to the human connection. We met up before we did this. I felt like that was important to me, that we did that. It's that human connection, that seeing the whites of someone's eyes.
Yeah. See, and you were right. I was a bit nervous to meet you, and I was a bit reluctant. I'll be transparent. I was like, fuck's sake, can't we do the podcast first, and then we can meet up because it's less tense. But you were completely spot on. So yeah, that was very true, and it is.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I like to think that I'm an approachable guy. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, you were great. I came back being completely comfortable. Fantastic. And I thought, yeah, that was a 9-10 experience. Fantastic. So it was absolutely fine.
That's good.
It was just, you had that extra bit of wisdom and extra bit of insight and maybe extra bit of strength that I didn't have at the moment. And I was like, Okay, we'll go with it. Let's meet in this random cafe in Farnham that I've never been to
But you know,
before,
but you
and
know
we'll see
what?
how
It
it
goes
goes.
back to
But
my one of my initial points about stretching the comfort zone, right? For you,
yeah, exactly.
that was stretching your comfort zone, and you grew from it.
It was.
You know, like for
I did
me,
grow from it.
right now, doing this podcast, having this conversation with you, it's stretching my comfort zone as well.
Mm.
It's
Yeah,
being on being comfortable, being uncomfortable, putting yourself in voluntary discomfort. You know, but you grow from it.
absolutely. You grow
Yeah,
from it, and yeah, and the great thing about growing from things is that the memory stays with you, and you can always look back and you have proof of what you're capable of now and how you developed. And yeah, you are spot on.
yeah.
So Portsmouth, yeah, I was going to say something. That's really cool that you got to play for your childhood club or your club as a child, because that's like a because most a lot of childhoods, they're sort of nothing really, aren't they? People don't have loads, they don't have a cool thing to say about their childhood. It's just exists. And then when you become an adult, I mean, they
Mm.
do great things and they've got ups and downs as everything, but to be able to say during these years of my childhood I got to play for Portsmouth, that's a great thing that you'll always be able to carry
Yeah,
with you. And
absolutely,
that's, and it's obviously set you in really good
absolutely.
stead. So, who do you
Oh,
think I support?
it's on your wall, pal, behind you.
Yeah,
I think that's a bit of a
unfortunately.
giveaway.
Um,
Oh dear.
yeah. Obviously, Tottenham Hotspur.
We don't need to go into that. That we don't. That's
Yeah,
again.
right.
That's another pod.
We don't need to go into
That's a whole nother podcast as well.
that's a whole nother YouTube channel. That is. Um,
Oh dear.
what, what,
Um, but yeah, it's all
um,
good stuff. All
we
good fun.
got we pro- oh, it is. What are your what are your long term goals and visions, or relatively
Good,
long term, if that's appropriate?
good question.
Maybe it's not.
And you're full of good ideas and good questions, aren't you, Ollie? So
Thank you.
long
Yes.
term vision. Oh, vision is a great word. Vision is a great word because obviously, you
Vision
know,
is, it's got football connotation.
it's it's an interesting one because obviously the goals are like magnets, right? You know, they should pull you towards the future. That's but you should
Yeah.
set the goal not necessarily to achieve it, but see who you become along the way. And that's from Jim Rohn again. You know, I think that is just brilliant because
Hmm.
again, it goes back to being journey orientated. You know, loving the process. You know, loving the challenges, loving the setbacks. You know,
Absolutely.
and it's because it isn't it isn't necessarily achieving the goal that people
Mm.
sometimes put so much happiness on when I have this or when I achieve this or when I do this. They put they they hold back on their happiness till it's done, right? And then they get there and they go, oh, is that it? You know, and they just kind of forget the whole process along the way
Mm.
to getting there. So I think
Yeah.
Jim put it absolutely spot on when he said, it's not the goal itself, it's who you need to become in order to achieve it. I think it's just so spot on.
Mm. Yeah.
So for me, in terms of my long term plans and my visions, I certainly see myself continuing with what I do day to day in terms of my impact on other
Mm.
people's lives. You know, through coaching, through the Fitmen focus group, because as I say, for me, the overriding driver for me is contribution. contribution to other people's lives, something that is bigger than just myself, you know. And I think we all have that. I think we all
Mm.
have um, that deep rooted desire to want to do that, but I don't think a lot of people, they either can't find it, they can't find it within themselves or discover it, or perhaps their priorities aren't necessarily aligned, you know. But I think, as I say, I think for
Yeah.
me, in terms of like, I don't really want to give you anything too specific, but as I say, for me,
And it wouldn't
for
be.
me, it's just contribution. I think that's the big driver
Yeah.
for me that takes me day to day, and I don't look too far ahead. I mean, obviously, I do have things that I want to achieve, and you know who I want to become, and places I want to go, and people I want to meet. I do have all those things, but I
Hmm.
don't want to focus too far ahead because then you lose sight of the present, and you know
Yeah.
you just don't know what life is going to throw up in, you know, in the time in between. You don't
You,
know, so you've got to try and be present where you are. And it's a good one I heard from the High Performance podcast, from Phil Neville. He was asked the question, what is high performance to you? And he said, high performance to me is doing the best you can with who you are, where you are, and what you have currently. I think that is, I think that's a
mm,
brilliant way to
that's
describe
brilliant.
high performance. That was the question that obviously Jake Humphrey and
Yeah.
Professor Damien Hughes posed to Phil. I thought it's so simple,
Hmm.
but so
Yeah.
profound. I thought it was brilliant. I really did. It really struck a chord with me.
Ma- yeah, yeah, yeah. Maxing out your
Yeah,
attributes
yeah,
as best as you can, and dealing with the cards that you're dealt as best as you
yeah.
can. Yeah, that's brilliant. I just want to go back to the football and the football and the goal, because there's a the reason why football is such a popular sport is because it's a bit like a metaphor for
Mm,
life, in the sense of we all have goals and we all try to aim for these goals, and we can all miss a mark, and we can all, it's like, why do people care if Harry Kane puts a little ball into a net, and why do thousands of people jump up from their seat and scream? Like, what does it really
mm,
mean? And it's, it make it, you being interested in football and coaching and all these things, it all makes sense. They're all linked, in like a on a
mm,
deeper level, and that's what football's about. It's about scoring a goal, and it's the crowd, they get off their seat, and then it's all this anticipation, and then you've got the climax, and then everyone sort of forgets, and you move on, and then it's about getting the next goal, and that's what life is about. It's like you get the positive emotion that you get when you're building towards something, and then you get that massive burst of like achieving it, and then it just dies, and then it's like you're back to square one, and you've got to go and get the next one, otherwise you're going to lose because Hoiberg is awful and Davinson Sanchez is playing, so it's like it's going to be rubbish. But yeah,
oh,
that
bless you,
that so that really makes sense how
bless
that
you. And
feeds into.
I'll just
I
digress on
know.
what you said there, Ollie. So when I was at the tournament, uh, weekend just gone, down in Southampton at the Stoneham Lane Football Complex, there's a quote on the wall in there from Pele, and it really really relates to what you've
Nice.
spoken about. You know, he said, it's on the wall. He said, "To me, football is more than just a football and two goals. It connects people from all corners of the world."
Mm.
You know,
Yeah. It's a
it's
human
a
universal.
universal language. It really is, and
It is.
it's magic. You know, it is absolute magic, and
Mm.
again, it's that connection, bringing people together,
Yeah,
contribution, all
yeah,
all these things. It's yeah, it is a force for good. It really is.
yeah. It is a force for good. And people say, yeah, it is. And people say, oh, how is, how are they earn, why do they earn so much money? They just kick a football, they just kick a
Hmm.
ball around a pitch. Like, what's the big deal? And it's like, I mean, maybe objectively
Uh-huh.
that's what they're
Uh-huh.
doing, but I mean, there aren't millions of kids around the world playing lawyer at lunch and break times in schools, are they? Kids in Africa aren't playing engineer. I mean, they're building things, but you've got to look at those sort of that proof and that social proof of there's something about football that is just
Or just
that is
sport, just
human.
sport
That
in
is
general.
human. Football
Doesn't
is
necessarily
that
have
is
to be football. Just
yeah,
sport in
sport in
general.
general. Yeah, exactly.
You
Just
know.
sport in general.
But obviously that
Yeah, right. Yeah,
was
sport.
a quote from Pele.
Um,
You know, and it's spot on.
yeah,
Spot on.
and he
One of
is
the
right.
greatest players to
It
have
is
ever
sport on.
graced the beautiful game.
Yeah, other than
Of course,
Harry Kane.
can't forget him.
Um, and of course, can't forget him. Right. I'll ask. I'll do the final question because we've been going a long time, and I'm sure you're
Ah,
busy.
well,
So,
just on
what?
that point,
Give me.
better to be productive rather than busy.
Okay. Oh yes,
Yeah,
yes. Talk to me
better
about.
to be
That's a good
productive
point.
rather than busy.
What's the difference between being productive
So
and
for
being busy?
me, if you focus on being busy and just going, 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 you can just end up doing figure of eights all day and getting nowhere. Whereas if you flip that,
So you won't
if
put
you
in
flip
effort.
it and focus on being productive with your
Mhm.
time, I think it's a much more positive way of looking at just day-to-day tasks, whatever that may be to you. If you can focus
Mm.
on being productive with your time rather than busy. A great book I got given to by a really good friend of
Mm.
mine. It's called The Ruthless Elimination of Hurry. Fantastic book. And it's about trying to break out of the chaos of the modern world, you know, because it's so easy to get caught up in it.
Mm.
But
Mm.
I think for me,
Yeah, it
it's
is.
that's how I would try and flip, being busy, flip it to trying to be productive. So yeah, that's my views on that.
And that's very important. It is work smart, not hard. We'll work both, but I I always there was an example. Oh yeah, when I used to write my blog posts, I used to write them. This probably won't make the cut actually, but who cares? I used to write loads of blog posts, and they didn't really get much attention. And then I kind of knew that I should have started a TikTok um, where I put up videos of people talking. I mean, there's loads of them out there. It's nothing original, but I didn't. And then when I did, it was way more effective than writing the blogs. And I always remember thinking, yeah, I wasn't working smart here. I should have anticipated this earlier and made a change, but I didn't. But you're right. Yeah, be productive, not busy, because and then you'll get burnt out and you haven't even done anything, and it's like, oh, for fuck's sake, I
Yeah,
haven't done much, but yeah, I'm tired.
just try
So
and
it's
flip it.
all, yeah,
I think that would be my advice for flip
cool.
that mentality.
Yeah, okay, yeah. What was final question? Have you ever had a breaking point?
Have I ever
What
had
was your breaking point where you
I
thought
ever had a
I'm gonna
breaking
have to
point?
make a change, or I thought I've got to stop doing this, or I need to do this now? You don't strike me as the type, to be fair,
um,
that's had I reckon you're really
I
steady.
think no, I think there was a breaking point in terms of me you know, finding personal development and I suppose that chain reaction. And that was
Yeah.
probably at my university graduation, just before lockdown. That was probably
Hmm.
a breaking point for me because I just felt like a sheep. I felt like a sheep.
Like a what? Sheep.
Yeah. It was really
Okay.
weird because I was sat there, and obviously it's quite something to go through university and do well, and it
Big
is
day, yeah.
there
Huge
is there's an enormous sense of
achievement.
achievement. I think that's the right word to use. There's an
Yeah.
enormous sense of achievement, and
Yeah.
it's a big thing. But at the same time, I just felt like surely there's just got to be more to my life than this, you know? Surely,
Mm.
I just felt like
Yeah.
I literally just felt like a number in a sea of faces, and it was really
Mm.
weird. It was really weird
Spreadsheet.
because I do remember it so vividly. I really do,
You
because
must
and
have.
I suppose that was a breaking point in terms of me, discovering the idea of personal development and this new way of thinking and having a different perspective on life. And so yeah, I suppose it all kind of stems from there. So you could probably say that was a breaking point for me. Yeah.
And here you are, and you've found you're finding your own path and doing what calls to you, which is what everyone out there should be doing what calls to us. Brilliant, Anthony. That's great. Right. Thank you guys for watching. This has been another episode of the Breaking Point podcast. I will put all of Anthony's socials or whatever he wants me to put in the description, and I'd love to have him back, and I'm sure he will be back soon. And yeah, thank you for watching, and we'll see you on the next one.